everyone. Welcome to the Canadian Passive Investing Show. I'm your host, Ava Benasaki, and I'm joined by my co-host, August Pinez. We have another incredible show for you today. Please like and subscribe as it helps us build our channel and allows us to keep bringing you great content and expert guest speakers. Our mission is to empower investors to earn passive income through real estate investing. So we're really excited, guys. We're joined today by Patrick Francey. Patrick Francey is an educator, coach, speaker, and the host of the Everyday Millionaire podcast. He is the CEO of the Real Estate Investment Network, REIN, which is Canada's largest real estate educational platform. Patrick is a proud husband, father, and grandfather, inspired and happiest when he is being a contribution to supporting to others' success. We believe this interview with Patrick will bring great value to active investors, passive investors, and Canadian real estate stakeholders, as he is boots on the ground in the real estate space and is a thought leader in this sector. So welcome, Patrick. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I hope I can live up to that introduction. So thanks. Glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
We're happy to have you on. Patrick, why don't we start off? Please tell us a little bit about your background and your start in real estate, and please stop short before getting into REIN.
Okay, so my journey started in the world of real estate. If I go back further, I've been an entrepreneur and a business owner since 1984, when I had my entrepreneurial accident. And I stepped into a space and built a business. It was a retail business in Edmonton, Alberta. And, over the years, did very well and built that business. And in about 2000, and I'll go back one more step. Along that journey, I had several mentors, people that I admired in the space. And, what I noticed about them was that as successful as they were as business owners, they all owned real estate as well. And I went, that's an interesting thing. I mean, at that point, I was still, I didn't know how to spell real estate. Is it one word? Is it two words? Do I capitalize it? I didn't know what to do. But I knew that sort of made sense to me. And as I talked to them, they're going, something, you never know how you're going to exit your business. And when you look at how you're going to support your financial future, you need to build other assets, and real estate is one of those assets that you need to consider. So in about 2000 is when I started investing in real estate, and that was really my introduction to the community called the Real Estate Investment Network.
Amazing. And I was going to say, Patrick, these days your name is synonymous with REIN. So we're looking forward to exploring and learning about how you took an average real estate educational group and turned it into the largest educational and networking platform for real estate investors across the country, which in turn has been a factory for creating millionaires across Canada. So maybe you can tell us about REIN and your journey within this great organization.
Well, I wish I could take credit for, turning it into and creating the brand that it is today. I was certainly part of all that journey, but, REIN goes back 30 years. And it started with a gentleman by the name of Tim Johnson, who at the time had a different agenda around the Real Estate Investment Network, but was starting to see what was driving real estate and that there were some interesting economic nuances that were consistent with how a real estate market reacted and he started to get guys together, and they built this thing called the Real Estate Investment Network with a totally different agenda initially. And along the way, he met a guy by the name of Don R. Campbell. Don worked with him, worked with Tim, and over time, in about 2000, I think it was, Don actually took over the Real Estate Investment Network from Tim Johnson. Don went on to write some great books, 7 bestsellers, and he really put REIN on the map in the context that it was. I came on to join Don in his growth in 2007, actually. And then I bought him out in 2012, I think, or 11. So, along that way, I was part of his executive team. I was part of the speakers, of course, and research team. And I bought the business in 2012, and here we are today. So it's the kind of the Coles Notes of the story, but that really is how it kind of came about.
We appreciate your humility and modesty, but when you did take over the company, it did make some significant changes. To talk to us about when you took over, what changes you made, and how was it able to then service more investors across Canada?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think it's like any business, is that at some point an owner realizes that you become the limiting part of your business if the business is all about you. And I think Don early on learned and realized that in order for him to scale the business, it had to be more than just about him. And so when I came on board, and what I'd noticed in 2000, I built the relationship when I met Don back in 2000, and we started just our relationship evolved. We met, had, got to know each other a little bit. But the point is that with any business, the realization is that in order to scale, you have to put a great team together. And I came in with a different view of the world. I came in with some ideas, some ways of speaking and some ways of presenting that were far different. And that opened up a door of opportunity for other investors to hear what Rain was all about differently, from a different voice and from a different perspective. And I think that was helpful overall to the business. And then we started shifting the model around who we included, who we put on the stage, and went through a big learning curve there. But ultimately, that was really what it was about. I came in with a different view of the world, a different business background, a different perspective. I came in to support Don in being who Don wanted to be in the space called real estate investing and in the Rain community. And I got to grow within that space myself personally, not only as a speaker, as a presenter, as an educator, because that does take some training. It does take some real focused effort to be brilliant on stage, which is always my goal, is to how do I get my message to this community, to my audience. And so I only want to add one thing to that, was that in the context of supporting real estate investors and being educators, one of the things that we always asked ourselves before we got on the stage, what am I going to present today that is going to have my audience do something tomorrow that they wouldn't have done before hearing me speak? And in that moment, you automatically shift to making that presentation, making everything about the audience. And it takes all of the focus off of you, although you want to present it brilliantly and interesting and all of those things. When you make it about the audience, it shifts the education. And we were never there to sell anything. Never. We didn't sell real estate. We didn't sell $30,000 coaching programs. And I'm not making that wrong. What I'm saying is we weren't there to do that. We were only there to provide great content and great context for real estate investors.
Excellent.
And now I know before any of these real estate educational platforms started, for an example, like Bigger Pockets, right? Which is huge now, but Rain was already in this space. So maybe you can talk to us about the plans and growth of Rain. And are you guys focused on staying in Canada, or do you have any plans of moving to the US?
Well, the model of Rain itself in the world of education goes beyond education. So there's really three fundamental components we look at. First off, we work backwards from supporting real estate investors in creating a financial future investing in real estate, whether that be what they refer to as security or financial certainty or financial freedom. That's where we work backwards from. Then we provide the education, because what we've discovered is that a lot of what real estate investors are learning is just wrong. It's just simply that. And that's where mistakes get made. That's where reputation where real estate gets a bad reputation, if you will. And then the other component of it was that we said, and this was of the vision from many years ago, is quit being a real estate speculator and be a real estate investor, which means look at the research, look at the economic fundamentals that drive real estate, and then use those economic fundamentals to make a decision. So we provide research. And then the other part of it was to say what we know supports the success of any investor is putting yourself in a like-minded community, in a culture of support that is in sharing and understanding each other, and then creating an environment for investors to show up, to rise up, to shine, to actually be in a space that they consider safe, because everybody's in the same conversation, understands the economic fundamentals. I mean, at the end of the day, you know this as well as I do, or perhaps even better, is that as investors, we want to know where real estate is going. Quite frankly, we don't care where it's been. I don't even care where it is today. These are things to note. But as an investor, I want to know where this real estate is going. I want to be in front of the wave. I don't want to be chasing that wave. And that's why when we look at the research, we look at the economic fundamentals that drive real estate. We have a system, we have a process. It's proven, it's been working for 30 years. So that's kind of the long and the short of what we do. And in expanding that conversation, it really is just pushing it out more to those individuals who we believe are interested in investing in real estate, but just don't understand or are afraid because they don't have the knowledge that they need. They don't believe they do.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that. That's what people need to get started in real estate. They need that support. And a lot of people need the hand holding and getting past that fear, like we were kind of talking about.
And the community
before.
and the
And
tribe.
community,
I've attended RAIN events in the past, and a lot of people have been part of the RAIN for decades.
Yeah, decades.
And also I've noticed that a lot of people who used to be members have become speakers or have become actually larger investors who went from being students of the game to being a presenter or managing a large real estate firms, investment firms, or real estate private equity firms. So it's a very interesting journey, but maybe we can touch on it a bit more here.
Yeah, I would like to do that.
Well, I think it's what happens, right? Is that people get excited about real estate. They get excited about the financial opportunities that it creates. Now that can be done with future income or the return on investment in the future. But many take it on as I'm good at this. They take on income producing strategies that all of a sudden they don't want a 9-to-5 job anymore. They don't want to punch the clock. And so they take on real estate in a whole different way. And whether that's fixing and flipping or, doing an LP or whatever strategy they engage in that actually generates income today, as opposed to future or a combination thereof, that's what they do. And they go on to be, many of them have trained on our stage. We see many out there today that I can say that I spent a lot of time with them, training them to be great speakers, to understand real estate, to understand communication, from the stage. So, that was part of the journey, and we see that happening all the time.
That's really cool. You'll have to give you some tips to be a great speaker. You know what I was going to say, actually, like we've been in the real estate content creation space for about 2 years now. And we have gone and spoken on gurus and expert channels. And we've had many experts and educators, coaches on our YouTube show. And we've done the research into most real estate educational platforms across North America. But what we can attest to is that almost every single one of those platforms has an agenda, as you were saying, either to sell a coaching program or find retail investors for real estate projects or be, a capital raising platform for others. But RAIN, however, is very unique. And aside from its sole mission, which is educating its investors, RAIN does not have an agenda, as you were saying. So explain this very interesting business model to us, if you can, please.
Well, I think it really speaks, as the owner and my executive team, it speaks to what we refer to as our values, which is our ethos. So, I often say, ethos by, the most common definition of it is a statement of character of an organization or an individual. And what I've learned the hard way, sadly, is that, if you're not staying true to your values, partnerships fail, businesses fail, relationships fail. And so we got really clear, and I did, on our values. And out of that came our ethos. And I happen to use ethos as an acronym, which is, I don't know, my brain sometimes fires that way to a fault, by the way. I seem to put an acronym to many things, far too many things. But for ethos, it really represented the E in ethos stood for energy, which meant, what am I bringing into a room? How is my team showing up? How are we as an organization showing up? I want to bring energy into it. I never want to be known as that guy that when they walk into a room, they suck the energy out of the room. And we've all had that experience with those individuals who just seem to be built that way. And then the T stood for trust. And I do actually an explanation of the 4 dimensions of trust, which I won't get into here, but trust was an important one. And I used 4 dimensions of trust in an explanation of it. The H stood for heart. Your heart has to be in what you're doing. Truly, you can have a great mindset to achieve anything, but if your heart isn't in it, you eventually give it up and go away. Ownership was the O, and ownership for me is probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the years, where I truly believe, and I've taken this to an extreme level, I guess, after I read a book by Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership, which I recommend everybody read 2 or 3 times probably. I'm a tough study perhaps, but that's what I did. So extreme ownership is that my life, my business, my relationships are a reflection of what or who I'm being. So I'm very, very I hold myself 100% accountable for everything that happens, the good and the bad. Lots of people want to take credit for all the great, like, look what I did, look what I did, look what I did. And when the yogurt hits the fan, they go, yeah, but that was that fault, or it was economy, and I had a crappy partner. And I just don't operate that way. And the S was for sharing and being very open with what I share in terms of content and what I give of myself in terms of my energy or my insights, my knowledge, my support, because that really speaks to what we're trying to do within the context of our ethos as the Real Estate Investment Network, which is we want to support people in achieving their financial goals, investing in real estate in this case. And so the contribution part of it is really important to me. The relationship part of it is, so it's really who I am. Who I am here is who I am when I'm not on camera. It is who I am when I'm working with my team. And our team is built this way. We show up this way everywhere we go. So there's never me having to generate if I'm tired because I didn't sleep well. Yes, I generate, but my intention is always to show up well and to live my ethos and live the ethos of the Real Estate Investment Network.
I absolutely love that. That is super cool. Thank you for sharing that ethos. Look at that. All right. To add to that, proving that you don't have an agenda in what you do, you actually believe in US real estate investing, even though your platform educates Canadians on the Canadian real estate market. So if you could talk to us about this dynamic and what are your views about US real estate?
Love to. The fundamental of what we really teach is looking at the economic fundamentals, okay? Making a decision. We don't have an agenda because when we produce and we have a research team, and I also myself, I research every day, every single day. I kind of got all nerdy and obsessed with it over the past couple of years, but really looking at what's happening economically, and because I really want to see the future, not only for myself and my own family, but of course for the community. So I take that on myself. But the point is there is a systematic approach to investing in real estate when you're looking at what the economic fundamentals are, what we call the economic drivers and the economic influencers. Now that system, that process, that thought process, if you will, applies in any first world country. And because the economic fundamentals that drive a market in Canada are no different than, or in Alberta, or in Vancouver specifically, or in Texas, or it's all the same. There is a process that has to happen within an economy in order for a real estate market to grow or to reverse that growth. And there is a cycle, a normal real estate, what we call a real estate cycle.
Excellent.
So the US, to me, I'm a big fan of what's going on in the US right now. As a matter of fact, I'm looking more and more, given what's happening in Canada, I'm looking more and more at opportunities in the US. From a business model point of view, it's far more challenging for us unless we literally pick a state or two, and then focus on those states, those cities. US, of course, as we all know, is huge. I mean, it's 10x what Canada is just in population. So there's a lot more to consider investing in the real estate, but the process doesn't change.
Yes. The state of Texas alone has a bigger economy than the whole country of Canada. So it gives you...
I know. Yeah. Oh, don't forget Florida, so away we go.
Absolutely. Now with quote unquote, what's happening in Canada, like you just mentioned before, brings us to our next question. We're going to keep politics out of this conversation, but when you have a leader in the Canadian real estate space, we just can't give up on the opportunity to get your perspective. There is a war currently taking place between developers, real estate investors, politicians, and young couples and new families looking to buy a home but can't afford one. Everyone is blaming each other on unaffordability of real estate in Canada. Please tell us how we got here and what is Patrick Francey's solution to the unaffordability in Canadian real estate market, particularly in Vancouver and Toronto?
Oh man, that's such a big question. Something that you said was really the case is that, when we trickle down to, those first-time home buyers, for example, those new younger families that want to just own a piece of real estate and have their families grow up in that, it presents challenges. Then we have, what we are all about in terms of investors and what investors are trying to achieve. But to your point that you mentioned is that everybody's looking for something to blame. It's the foreign investors, those darn foreign investors. No, it's the investors, those darn investors, they're the problem. No, it's the NIMBYs, those not in my backyard people, it's their fault. So everybody's looking for someone or something to blame on what's happening in the real estate market. And the reality of it is it's a huge question because it's far more nuanced than any one thing. So we're going to tax those bad foreign investors. Well, okay, they've tried that. It doesn't work because it's only one part of a far bigger problem. And so when we look at what is the problem, we have to actually break it down. You look at Vancouver and Toronto specifically, and what have you got? You've got a very densified area for all the reasons it's densified. Greenbelt in Toronto and that GTA area. Vancouver, you've got mountains, you got ocean, and you got agriculture. So what do? Well, you got to build up, you got to densify, and that causes its own problems because then you've got those individuals who are literally saying, no, not in my backyard. I don't want a 20-story condo building in my neighborhood because it's going to destroy the neighborhood. We don't have parking. We don't have infrastructure. It's going to bring out crime, whatever the story is around all of those things. Then you've got bureaucrats, and I'm sorry, they just are at the municipal level, who go, well, no, I don't want to be made wrong. I don't want to not get voted in. So they kick the can down the road. They tap dance around it. No decisions get made. It takes years to get a building handled in Vancouver.
Year and a half to 2 years to get a building permit, where our American friends are completing a project from when it's shovel ready to completion in less than 2 years. Yes. It was shocking when I was seeing those numbers. But please go ahead, Patrick.
But that's a valid point to interject, because that is exactly what's happening. It isn't outside. If you're a politician, we all joke about it, but the reality of it is, if you're a politician, your job, the minute you get elected, is to get reelected. And right now, and this has been the case for several years, more and more, and we're seeing it even more now, is that it's politics over policy. Nobody's willing to make the hard decisions because you've got such a diverse view of the world by those people who vote you in. Like, we see the divisiveness, for example, right now in what's happening with the pandemic and lockdowns and mandates and vax and no vax and open up the economy or shut down the economy. It's like so polarizing. That starts with leadership. Full stop. I don't care what anybody else has to say in that particular thing. If we had leaders that led, if we had leaders who were conscious of the words they were speaking, it would be far less controversial, far less polarizing, far less divisive. But because politics overtakes policy, those are the things that are happening. And it happens in the real estate world. So I can get fired up about politics. I don't think we have a leader, and I don't think we have a leader at the federal level right now. Recently, as we do this particular interview, Pierre Poilievre is throwing his hat in the ring. I think there's some chance there. I've followed Pierre for about 4 or 5 years now. I've started to grow as a fan of his and listening to him. But short of that, I don't look across our political landscape and see a bunch of leaders in there. I'm optimistic about Pierre, but he's got Pierre Poilievre, but he's also got to deal with what he's got to deal with. So is he he's not a messiah. Like, he's not going to come in and fix the world. But this is the problem that we face with politics in Canada. We're 38 million, 37 million population. We're a small country in the scope of things. We don't have a lot. We have commodities and we have resources, but we're barely a rounding error, to the U.S. and to other countries. So we don't have a lot of clout in that regard, and we certainly need a leader that can do that. So that all comes back to one fundamental issue that we have in the world of real estate. We need leadership, right from the municipal level, right to the top. Full stop. I don't know if that's kind of an answer, non-answer, because I could go on in depth.
I'll bring you right back to it. So just focusing on those young couples and new families who are trying to just buy a piece of real estate as a home, and not developers. And if you were trying to remedy that particular issue and trying to obviously find the cause and the problem to then create a remedy for it and have a prescription for it, you have to diagnose and then prescribe, right? So what is the problem? Why can't young couples afford a home? Is it because there's not enough product? Is it because developers can't build? And how can that be resolved? Is it because of mortgage laws that exist? what can remedy the issue for young families, new families and young couples to be able to buy a home in
Yeah,
Vancouver?
well, I think there's a couple things that are happening right now, right? Is that if we go back 2 years, or even go back 5 years. I mean, this has always been some level of a conversation, hasn't it? Listen, I'm 63 years old. When I was 18 years old, affordability was an issue. Interest rates were an issue. This is a normal march of a growing economy and a growing population and the need for people to actually, want to own a home, or what they believe is a need. Okay. There's a desire for Canadians to own their space. That's fundamentally, there's a belief system there that is driving part of the problem. Now, if we go back 2 years, we wouldn't be having the same conversation to this degree. It's become a problem given the economic conditions that we find ourselves in. And so I don't know, is there a solution to the problem? I don't know. How about opening up the economy? How about getting things rolling again so that builders aren't having to increase costs? How about getting the bureaucracy out of the way and getting the bureaucracies out of the way so that we can actually make some decisions to, develop and increase supply strategically and be really clear on it. We talk a lot about supply issues. There's no supply issues when it comes to condos, to be honest with you. The biggest supply issue we have is single family detached units. That's the biggest challenge that we face. Go to Alberta. There's more condos than they know what to do with, but people don't want condos. Even in Vancouver, your Vancouver market although the condo market is hot, it's not that there isn't available units. And you can go down in through the Lower Mainland. At Toronto, same thing, but people don't want it. Well, what changed? Well, the pandemic changed. I got to work from home. Recent stat I can top off the top of my head is that, our work from home cohort increased 300%. 25% of workers are now permanently working from home. You're going to do that in a 400 square foot condo when you've got somebody else who wants to work from home? I mean, gosh, we live on a property, my wife and I both, we live on an acreage with two separate buildings, and it sometimes feels cramped. I joke about that, but the point is that I can't blame a mother and a father with two kids saying, I can't work in a townhouse, I can't work in a condo. This isn't functional, and they're telling the truth about that. And so when we look at all of the conditions that we have today, it's more, I believe, it's a big part of what's happening in this affordability issues driven by the needs of people that have shifted. And working from home is a big part of that. Not wanting to be in close contact is another part of that. You and I, may be pretty casual when it comes to our fear or lack of fear around COVID. I have zero fear around it, like none. And that may be just me being dumb, but I just don't have any fear around it. Lots of people don't have that. They're actually very afraid. And so I'm not going to make that wrong, but then understand that there's a lot of those individuals who don't want to be in a condo. They don't want to be going up and down an elevator. There's still a stigma around it, and they're nervous about it.
Great point. Great point. Great.
Well said, and great point, Patrick. I want to switch the conversation now and talk about the Everyday Millionaire podcast. Yeah. And I had the absolute pleasure of being a guest on your podcast. And personally, I felt that I think I mentioned this on the show, but I felt like I learned a lot, even though I was the guest and I was the one being interviewed. So if you could please tell us about your journey as a podcast host, and how did the idea come about, and what are your plans for the show moving forward?
That's actually it's a great question. There's a little bit of depth to that question, because at the time, Don, who is a friend, was pushing me to write a book. You've got so much there. And so I coined I shouldn't say I coined the phrase, but there was a phrase coined by the Real Estate Investment Network to treat your real estate investing like a business. And, that's where success lives. Now, I took that particular topic on and gave it depth. I really laid out how to treat your real estate investing like a business. And what does that even mean? And I broke it down into several components. So the point of it is that I was having peers, put pressure on me to write a book, and I didn't want to write a book. And I didn't want to write a book for a number of reasons. And one of the things that I came to understand is that part of my resistance was to be, was to put myself out there. I didn't want to put myself on a platform. I didn't want to, put myself up there to be criticized or ridiculed or made wrong or whatever that is. It's your ego's way of, keeping you playing small, even though you may have many gifts to offer the world. And I came to that realization, and I was literally on vacation with my wife, Stephanie. We were in St. Lucia and really kicking back on the beach. And I was contemplating all of that. And the realization that I came to was that a podcast would be a really cool option. And at about the same time I had that thought process, because it was about 5 years ago that I started the podcast. I think lost track now, but at the same time, the title of The Everyday Millionaire came into my world because I was surrounded by real estate investors, small business owners, had been for many years, and they were just the guy next door. They were that person that just worked hard and just kept chugged away, and they had a significant net worth, yet they weren't putting themselves out there. They weren't, talking about it. They weren't even extravagant in their lifestyle. And so The Everyday Millionaire came from the concept that there's just some really cool, quiet people that have accumulated through hard work and smart work, great net worths. And a lot of people want that. They want that $1 million net worth. And so I thought about the podcast of just interviewing what I refer to as everyday millionaires who could share their journey. Now that morphed, by the way. It morphed into some really cool people who were on their journey to become everyday millionaires, but were really uber focused, had a lot to share in their journey. So has everybody been an everyday millionaire? No, but I can say that most have, but everybody, I believe, has lived what I refer to as those individuals, the extraordinary or the seemingly ordinary achieving the extraordinary. And that was always kind of the basis for the interviews that I did and the people that I invited on the show.
Amazing.
What a cool concept to have, and what a great show. Amazing. Last question before we get into the next segment of our show. This is more of a personal question, but what are Patrick's plans? We all know you've done tremendously well in business and establishing Rain, but do you have any plans to possibly make a switch to politics? And please tell us, what do you see yourself being involved in the next 5 years?
I definitely no politics for me. I mean, I rather stand on the sidelines and bitch about politics. I don't want to be in there. I don't do well in that space. I'm not very political. But I mean, I think that, I joke about it for me as a coach and the work that I've done over the years is that, I look at it and I go, what is my life really about? Am I living my life fully, and am I living my values? So am I being true to myself? And today I can say without question that I am. And I do that because I really am clear on my values, what I need to do to be a contribution, what lights me up. And so I joke all the time is that, I'm on the Freedom 95 program. I have no intentions of shutting down or not doing what I do because it really speaks to what I hold in the highest regard, which is being a contribution, supporting the success of others, and having significance, which is a standard human need. Which is an actual human need, is to have significance, but I want to do it through being a contribution to the success of others. And that may sound altruistic or idealistic, but it's true for me. I've lived my life that way. And it took me a while to find a space to play in that I could do that. Now, in my retail business back in Alberta, in Edmonton, which I still own today, 37 years later, it was very niche. It was very focused on the young athletes and actually world-class and Olympic athletes. But ultimately, it was supporting others in achieving their dreams. And I just love doing that stuff. It really, to me, is about it's about supporting others. And I don't know. I came out of the chute that way. I guess it's just in my DNA.
Sure. And best way to go about building a business is solving a problem, and it seems you've
Sure.
figured that out. Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right,
Patrick,
perfect.
you're awesome. We really, really appreciate it.
But I want to, it's not to say that, none of this is easy. I've had huge challenges. I've made huge mistakes, and and I want to just say that really clear, because as much as I'm living my values today, I'm happy to share the biggest mistakes I've ever made in business and in my life is when I compromised my values, when I lived out of integrity to who I really am. Now, that's not making anybody else wrong, but you have your values, both of you, I have my values. Yours aren't right and mine are wrong, or vice versa, but they may not align. And if they don't align, then doesn't mean I don't like you, doesn't mean I don't want to be your friend. I just may not do business with you. I may not go on vacation with you. You know what I'm saying? Happy to go for a beer, perhaps. But this is really the mistakes that I see small business owners making, real estate investors making. In the personal coaching that I do with people, I see it even with their significant others in marriage or in relationship. And so it's such a big lesson to get. And like many of my lessons, they're expensive and they're hard, but here I am today. So it's all good.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Really appreciate all that. We got to our next segment of our show. Excited?
The 10 championship rounds to financial freedom. So whatever comes top of mind, we're going to do a rapid fire.
Okay. There's nothing rapid about me, but go ahead.
Yeah, take your, we call it rapid fire. We take your time. We enjoy the conversation and your perspective.
Absolutely. So first question, Patrick, who was the most influential person in your life?
The most influential person?
Yes.
Oh, my wife.
Okay, it's probably the most consensus answer, most common answer we get. Men are all scared of their wives.
I don't. I've got the most amazing significant other that. Yeah, I think that I could ever dreamt of. I mean, so we are totally best friends. We support each other. We both have had a great life in doing what we do. Coming back to values. We align, we have, we challenge each other, we debate each other, we piss each other off, but it never, ever changes who we are in our relationship.
That's beautiful. Amazing. Incredible. Okay. Second question. What is the #1 book you'd recommend?
Oh man, there's so many. Depending on where you are in your own journey, right? And what it is you're facing. So, one of the books that was really, a simple book many years ago as a young man. I read, The Wealthy Barber, and then I went on to read Robert Kiyosaki's book, and I've lost the name of it. Help me out.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. Thank you very much. And I'm still a fan of Robert Kiyosaki today, and all his weirdness and all who Robert is. I love him, and I think he's awesome. And I also admire the man at 75 years old. He's still doing what he loves to do. And I don't agree with everything he says, but I like him. And then and along the way, I've read I'm a study of leadership. I'm a study of personal development, being the best I can be. So Wayne Dyer was anything that Wayne Dyer wrote. I was a real fan of. Recently, one of my favorite books, as I shared with you earlier, was Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink and his partner. But those have been they stand out as they've had an impact on my life that I can think of, and I know there's many others.
Great answer, because it's difficult to say #1 book you recommend. Yeah. It depends on what journey in your life you are in. It depends where you need assistance. If it's about financial literacy or if it's about self-development or other aspects.
First time anybody's ever said that, so I like that a lot.
Yes.
Okay, Patrick, if you had the opportunity to travel back in time, what advice would you give your younger self?
Oh, be more courageous.
Okay. Nice.
I see him as a very courageous guy, so I'm not sure how much more courageous he wants to be, but all right. Maybe he wants to go. Maybe he wants to go parachuting.
But it was my younger self. My younger self.
Right? His younger self. So
got it.
People grow along the way. Okay. I'm excited for this one. What's the best investment you've ever made?
Oh, it may sound cliche, but any investment I've ever made in myself has been the best investment.
Nice.
So like I say, it might be cliche. I mean, I could look at all sorts of assets and go, okay, well, those were good too. But, from me, it's, the investment in myself and in my relationship with my wife.
Incredible. Now, what's the worst investment you've ever made, and what lessons did you learn from it?
You know, I don't think I have a worst. You know, I've made a lot of bad investments. I don't know that I've had a worst, because here's my fundamental belief, at my core belief system is that, you know, based on what I believe of consciousness and universal law and all of the things that I, you know, operate on top of, is that it's all part of the journey. And out of that, I get to be better, I get to improve. And if I wouldn't have made that mistake, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't have learned what I needed to learn. So I don't know that there's a worst. I literally don't have regrets in my life, none. Because I know right away that I can collapse that just by looking at what I learned from it and what I'm grateful for in terms of what I learned from it, and how it has defined me as a man and as a husband, a business owner, you know, as a leader that I hope to be one day. That's all of it is part of that journey. So there's no worst. There's just, you know, and I'll share a quick story with you. And this, you know, which was, I think I shared it with you, Ava, on the podcast, which is just a friend told me there are no mistakes. There's just outcomes.
Yes, that was a really good one.
You know, and you either like the outcome or you don't. And if you don't like the outcome, put in the correction, move on.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I adopted that consciously, subconsciously. I did take his advice.
And I adopted it too after we talked on the show. All right, next question. How much would you need in the bank to retire today? What's your number?
Oh man, I don't have a number. I really don't. I know that if nothing changed for me in terms of my lifestyle, I'm 100% okay. I actually, we live pretty, it's all relative, but we live pretty meager, I would say. You know, I don't have stuff. I'm not interested in material things. We have a beautiful property. We have a beautiful home on a great piece of property. You know, we want for nothing. And I'm not interested in you know, cars and things that I have to maintain, insure, fuel, worry about scratching. You know, I'm just
private jets to events, rain events.
Well, okay, now the team has encouraged me to set my sights a little higher when it comes to travel. No doubt about that.
All right.
Awesome. Okay, if you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be? Good one.
So many.
Ava Benasaki.
Martin Luther King.
Oh, cool.
And it's Black History Month this month, so great choice.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I didn't know that, but you know, I'm an admirer. I and believe it or not, Elvis Presley, and not for the reasons you think, but you know, Martin Luther King and Elvis Presley, totally different, you know, agendas, totally different, but they changed the world. They literally changed the world. Now, there's probably many other musicians that have done that, but when you look and you follow, and I'm not a fan of Elvis Presley in terms of his music, although I like it. It's not a thing for me. But when I look at his history, he changed what was happening with when he introduced rock and roll to the world. If you look at that specific period in time, it changed a culture. And I found that just like, holy cow, that was really interesting. So yes, Elvis, I'd like to, for whatever reason, I don't think it would be all that profound, but I think it would be cool to meet the guy. But Martin Luther King, for sure. I think he changed the world.
That's super cool. All right. If you weren't doing what you're doing today, what would you be doing now?
Some version of exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe a professional boxer, you know? He's back there.
Okay, my favorite question: book smarts or street smarts?
What about it?
What would you pick? What would you pick if you could pick?
Oh, you know something. You know, there's
business in life, in real estate. If you know, if in success, in what you've seen and experiences in life, do you feel like book smarts is more successful or street smarts?
smarts.
What is needed essentially to have success in any part of endeavor in life?
You know, something, there's a kind of an analogy that I use, which is, you know, I can learn how to swim on YouTube. I can learn how to swim in a book, but I don't really learn how to swim until I jump in the water.
Yeah, there you go.
and ultimately, you know, when I get in, am I jumping in the deep end or am I jumping in the shallow end? You know, and so those are going to define what I really learn when it comes to doing that. So I think there's of course a combination for both. I know many who, you know, JG has a fundamental philosophy is, you know, jump out of the plane without a parachute. I just trust that I'll be able to build it on the way down, and it'll open before I hit the ground. And that's not to minimize the study that he does, but it's like he's much more built that way. Is that, and I think this is a longer answer than you were probably hoping for to this question, but you know, there is a fundamental that this is where people get stuck in anything, and whether it be real estate, learning, life, business, is that they want to wait to have the grand piano built before they sit down to play. They want to know everything about everything before they start that journey. And the reality of it is that sometimes you just need to get going, and you create it on the way, built on what you need to do. And it's going to change and shift. So in other words, you build that grand piano, you get on the journey and you realize, oh gosh, all I needed was a player piano. You know, it's like, why did we go to that? Why did we waste that time, that expense, that money? Why did I go through that fear, that anxiety, when all I needed to do was just start? You know, it's kind of along those lines.
Amazing. Okay, Patrick, last question. If you had $1 million cash and you had to make one investment today, what would it be?
If I had $1 million cash.
Yeah.
And you had to make one investment, and it had to be done today.
Bitcoin.
Nice. Wow.
We've got that a few times. All right.
All right. Very cool.
Hey, it was awesome, man. Really appreciate your transparency. Really appreciate your time. We know you're super busy just coming here. Again, like what you believe is adding value. You've definitely added value to us, and I'm sure our viewers as well.
Yeah, this is an incredible interview. Thanks, Patrick.
That's great.
If you can quickly just let everybody know, what is the best way that they can reach you?
You know, the best way to get a hold of us or to reach, you know, number one, you can always email me personally, ceo@raincanada.com. That's always an easy way to go. But if you want to learn about Real Estate Investment Network, raincanada.com, and go to our website, and follow me on Twitter, P Francey, P Francey on Twitter, on Instagram. You know, I'm always around there on the social media side of things.
Awesome, Patrick. Thank you so much again.
Thanks a lot.